These are the two main concentration ratios that we use to establish which firm type we're dealing with here along the market spectrum. So we've just taken data from a typical class here and asked the class where their family does the average weekly shop. Where do you normally go and buy the majority of your groceries each week? And we've got the following data here. Shop A, I've just taken out the names of the shops, but 6 fellas in the class said their family shopped in A, 8 in B, and so forth like that. So the 4 firm ratio just looks at the main 4, the biggest 4, and it ignores, you can see there was 2 people shopped in E and 1 in F. So they're ignored. So we just look at the market share of the biggest 4. And we can see there that shop A takes 21% of the business, 29% almost for B, and so forth. And the 4 firm ratio simply adds up those 4 and it gives us a score. And that score is 89.29. So what does that tell us? Well, there's a scale attached to the 4 firm ratio, and it tells us that if your answer is where ours is there in that range of 80 to 100, that's considered high concentration and very likely to be oligopoly or monopoly. Okay, and we can see here that it's not monopoly because there are 4 different shops here. But the 89% answer could have been achieved through just one shop. So you would get the exact same answer, but with just one shop. So let us say just that we had 28 and then just for handiness, none from anywhere else. You get practically the same answer, 90. So you might think, well, how will I know whether this is oligopoly or monopoly? So you have to look at the data. The answer is not enough on its own. So it's obviously a range that's suggesting oligopoly here, but if we can tell if that were the information there, it would clearly be monopoly. But that wasn't the case, so it's an oligopoly. So you have to look at the answer, but also then compare it to where that answer came from and how many shops were we dealing with. The second one is the HHI. I've put in the same data again here, based on the same class survey. So 6 people going to shop A and so forth. The difference in this one is that the HH index calculates all of them. So it gives you a different answer, and it's measured, as you can see here, along an entirely different scale. But we can still see that the answer here, 2,100, okay? So it's coming in here, in this range, okay? So you might think maybe that's giving us a more accurate measure. It's certainly giving us a backup to our 4 firm ratio. So it's 2,100 odd there, and that's telling us that it's medium concentration, and therefore it's very likely to be oligopoly. So in both instances, the index takes the share of the market, the percentage share of the market. So whether it be the 4 firm ratio or the HH index, okay, in which case it takes everybody into account. It will give you then a score, and then you can decide based on that information and also based on the number of firms involved, whether or not that was, it could be perfect competition, monopolistic, oligopoly, or monopoly. In the second example here, the second index, it's also important to note when you're doing the calculation that all of these values are squared, whereas in the 4 firm, if we go up to that, they're just added together. The share of the top 4 is added together, whereas with the HH index, the values are squared. And that's intended to give us a more accurate reflection, so that the very, very dominant firms don't totally dominate the scale, so that the slightly smaller firms, even though it's oligopoly, sometimes one firm can be bigger than another, but when you square the result, it's supposed to give you a more balanced outcome. And we can see here that in this case it's actually coming in here in the medium range, whereas in the previous one it's coming in high concentration. Now they're both telling us the same thing. They're both telling us that it's oligopoly, but perhaps the HH index is maybe just that bit more accurate.